my trials, my tribulations, obstacles, barriers, perturbations, all set in place, positioned by foes, enemies of progress. This really shows the plans of the goddess are settling in place.
The role of women in Estolia will never be fully understood by the women of the 21st century and the rest of the world. What Estolians know down to the most cellular level is that a man and a woman are but two halves of one powerful whole, that the synergistic combination of those two halves will become something much greater than each individual part. They accept and embrace that truth, knowing neither half is greater than the other. Ensayo of Kenzie O'Rourke, Zakarian.
Zeke held Catherine in his arms as she fell asleep. He relived that pinnacle instant when his soul brushed off the final tethers that kept it tied to him, and sank within the extraordinary embrace of her soul, akin to the sense of her body wrapped tightly around his, but more exquisite, more eternal than the transient sensation of physical union. He would record everything he experienced, beginning with the morning he woke and planned to travel to Barcelona to find a woman, any woman, with whom he could fulfill the promise of Zacharias. At the time his focus was more on receiving the fullness of the promises of deity and less on the emotional and physical connection with a woman who would mean more to him than life itself. No, he had not been ready to find sweet Catherine then, and he shuddered at the thought of how shallow any other relationship would have been. More than once he wondered if he was seeing the aura of some engaging beauty, and he understood now he had been guilty of trivializing everything that mattered about his faith. Deity knew he needed the last year to learn what mattered. Now, he would record everything that happened since he was kicked, everything he learned, and most importantly, he would write about the shortcomings he felt were the impetus behind this critical lesson he was forced to learn. And he would do his best, and fail in the attempt, to share with all future Estolians what it was like to be a part of this incredible union. He remembered a conversation he once had, in the waning days of his grandfather's life, discussing the blessings and the sacrifices that came from embracing the Estolian way. He was tied to Catherine in life and in death. He would never survive without her. This connection they shared, this beautiful blending of souls, was the greatest blessing he would ever know. Nothing would or could transcend it. He felt a profound gratitude for the position he was born to fill, for the guidance of deity, for the woman who had kept herself pure, so that he might, on this most momentous night, take her purity in exchange for his soul, and pledge his life to her. Gratitude for the gift from deity that was given to all Estolians, a promised son kindling within the womb of the woman who kept his soul. He was excited to experience the lifelong adventure they were beginning together. A sparkling, indeterminate light out of the corner of his eye caught his attention, and he looked towards the entrance to the bedchamber. Frowning, he wondered if he imagined it, but then he decided to investigate. He rose and pulled a bath-robe out of the chest at the foot of the bed, slipping it on. He pushed the heavy tapestry aside, so he could quietly slip into the small sitting room. At first, he squinted against the light until his eyes adjusted. It was actually quite dim. In the real world, the sun was just setting on his last day as a 30-year-old. Once the drape fell closed behind him, he felt a prickling at his nape. He was not alone in the outer room. A woman stood near the heavy wooden door leading into the seclusion suite. She had jaw-length straight blonde hair and grey eyes. She was short and wore a feminine version of the robes worn by the keeper.
Catherine will not reject you,
she said solemnly.
I am glad to hear that,
he said, equally solemn.
I did not wish to yield up my life along with my soul.
He was looking into the eyes of deity.
What are you here to tell me?
I wish only to remind you to study the words of the blessing you received when you became the last resort. There are many layers within it. I know you did not understand how critical it was, but now you are constrained to ponder the words, consider their meaning, and when necessary, you are to share your deep insight with those who will need it.
I will,
he vowed.
Estolia has remained in isolation, hidden from the perceptions of the greater world since its inception. But within your lifetime, Lazarus Ezekiel Zakarian, the cloak of security and obscurity will begin to fall away. What you must remember is that this is necessary for the continuing safety of your land. The Estolian butterfly lives far longer than any other species of butterfly. It can spend from 1 to 3 years first as an obscure larva, growing ever larger, and then it becomes a chrysalis for up to 18 months. No matter how long it remains as an obscure larva, nor how long it bides its time as a chrysalis, it will never fulfill its destiny if it does not have the courage and biological imperative to leave the chrysalis and continue on its life cycle in flamboyant, brilliant color to start the cycle all over again. While the analogy can only go so far, Estolia is very similar. Having matured in obscurity, thriving even through several difficult eras in the history of the world, she must now take the step that will bring her into flamboyant, brilliant color and also bring her to the attention of the world. You, Ezekiel, will see your nation into the beginning stages of this most critical transition.
She fell silent and glanced away from him, looking troubled. What did Deity think about? What did she see when she looked away from him? What could worry Deity? He felt a shiver of fear. When she spoke again, her voice was husky, almost as if she was having trouble holding back tears.
Without intervention, I fear for Estolia and for this planet. Remember what I have asked you to do within your many blessings. Nurture the offspring of Lilane and cherish Kedar and Cicero, who is, I am certain you now realize, more precious to you than your soul, or even life itself.
Zeke promised to record everything that she told him, the entire conversation, word for word. He glanced at the small utilitarian desk provided in each of the seclusion suites for recording the important impressions of seclusion, the pivotal moment in the life of Estolian couples. A select few acolytes were given the service task of stocking the suite with beverages and delicacies, with clean linens and leather-bound journals to begin a joint diary for the couple. He was grateful that his acolyte assignment had not included caring for those in seclusion. It was hard enough, while reading some of the more erotic capitolos, to quell the natural reactions of the body. He could not have tolerated being so close to a couple in seclusion. The writing supplies were well stocked and he felt a deep and abiding gratitude for the many systems that Zachariah's second son, Omador, and his successors established over the centuries. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw another sparkle of indeterminate light. When he looked back, Deity was gone. He closed his eyes and absorbed the impact of knowing he had just conversed with Deity. Then, he crossed over to the desk, pulling out a piece of paper to transcribe his conversation and everything else that had occurred in the last few hours. He would come back to add many other details about the last 13 months of his life, but what mattered now was making certain he faithfully transcribed each of the words of Deity.
In the darkness, a glimmering light, dancing and bursting, sparkling and bright.